And let's go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your abundant blessings. You are such a merciful and wonderful God, and we thank you for that. Teach us more of your will and way. Help us to see the beauty of your word and the coherence of it, the cohesiveness. And Lord, help us to enter into that joyful experience of taking to give. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So with everything that we have learned so far, we can really ask the question, who can hurt me? And the answer to that, from an emotional, spiritual standpoint, no one can hurt me. I can only hurt myself. You see, only I can breathe for myself. Only I can eat for myself. Only I can drink for myself. Only I can think for myself. And it's only what I breathe, what I eat, what I drink, not what you breathe, not what you eat, not what you drink, that impacts my health and my body. And it's only what I think, not what you think, that impacts my body and my health. Now, you do have an influence by speaking words, and those words do have an influence, but I individually have a responsibility for what words I take in, which ones I take, which ones I believe. And I cannot be responsible for everything that everyone else says and shares, and I cannot be dependent upon what everyone else shares. I must be dependent upon the source, which is God, and taking from him the truth rather than from everyone else and what they say and what they do. So somebody else might do and say things around me that provides a hurtful environment, but even while they are doing so, the buffet of God's love is always present. Remember, it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's always full and it's always free. And so I always have the option to come and take from God's love, to believe his word and his truth rather than the lies and the selfishness and so on of others. And it's my choice. It's that choice of which buffet I eat from that really determines my outcome. Right? It's not what somebody else does or says around me that determines my outcome. It's that which I take. Am I taking from God or am I taking from them? And that determines my outcome. So we've got an example here. Martha, she was married to Herb, and they were married for 35 years, and it was a fairly good relationship. I mean, it wasn't the best one in the world, but it was fine. And Herb was a traveling salesman. He was gone during the week and home on the weekends, and he supplied for her needs. She had a home. She didn't have to work. She, kept the home and the garden and other things like that. And so life was pretty good. And that is until Martha found out. Well, what did Martha find out? Martha found out that Herb was not exactly being faithful to her. She found out that Herb had not been faithful to her the entire 35 years. She found out that Herb had another family in another city with children that had grown and out of the home, and she was actually wife number 2. Well, you can imagine that was not a nice revelation that came to her at that time. And that was about when Martha began to decline. She's been married for 35 years. She's in her later years of life. Her parents are gone. She doesn't have any family members that she can rely upon. She's not exactly thinking about staying with Herb anymore. What does she do? Where does she live? How does she survive? She doesn't have a career. She doesn't have work skills or other things like that. And so these thoughts are really just piling upon her. And, her life is kind of in a tailspin right now, and it's difficult to sleep. And so she sees the doctor and gets some sleep medication. And, that sort of helps, but not really. And then she starts developing pain and a pain syndrome. And then she starts having an autoimmune condition. And that autoimmune condition just starts ravaging her body and destroying organs. And 3 years later, Martha is, as we sometimes say in the healthcare industry, she was circling the drain, you know, and you pull the plug and things just start circling the drain and so on. While she was circling the drain, she was going downhill fast. So what was the cause of Martha's decline? Well, the cause for her decline was not Herb's infidelity, because he had been unfaithful to her the entire 35 years and she had never been affected by it before. She'd been fine. Life was okay. Life only became a problem when she found out about Herb's infidelity. So it wasn't his infidelity that began her decline, it was her own thinking about his infidelity that began her decline. You see, what he did in another place with another woman at another time could not destroy her body. The only thing that could destroy her body was her own mind and her own thinking. And so it was her own mind, her own thinking that began to destroy her body and ended up with autoimmune condition and significant dysfunction and her coming to the point of death. Yes, she believed what we all are born believing, that it's mine, right? I am my own. I can produce. It belongs to me. It's my possession, right? We all grew up believing this, and it comes from that same false identity that I believe that I'm God, right? And so when I believe that I'm God, I believe that things that are done against me, and so I take things personally, but I'm dependent upon others because you have to be dependent because you really aren't God, and it just becomes a whole mess. Now, could she be grateful? Well, by God's grace, yes. Outside of his grace, no. She's stuck with the thinking patterns of the sinful, fallen human nature, that old heart that we talked about. But by God's grace, could she be grateful? Yes, she could. What could she be grateful for? Well, she could be grateful for God's support of her over all those 35 years. He had never left her. He had never forsaken her. He had promised that to love her with an everlasting love. She felt abandoned. She felt betrayed. But really, was she betrayed? No, she wasn't betrayed. God never betrayed her, right? Was she betrayed by Herb? Yeah. But was that her issue? No, that wasn't her issue. That was Herb's issue. So, if anything, if she was seeing this from the right standpoint, she would feel pity and sorrow for Herb because of the deception that he's in that would cause him to be deceitful over so many years and live a lie. Poor guy, right? She could be grateful for the good weekends that they had, the financial support, the home, she didn't have to work and all of that kind of stuff. And if her response to this would have been gratitude for all that God had done for her throughout all those years, what kind of health would she be experiencing right now? It would be a lot different, right? You see, it's not what happened to her, but it's what she thought about what happened to her that led to her decline. You see, it's a hard thing for us to take, to see that our own diseases and our own issues are our own problems. But the vast majority of the time, that is the case. Now, I remember going over these points one time here at the Lifestyle Center, and we had, a number of guests. We always have guests with us, and one of them was the light bulb went on, and she raised her hand and she asked the question, "Do you mean to tell me that it's my fault, her disease, her condition?" And my response was, "Yes, but that's a good thing It's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Because if it was their fault, then you can't do anything about it because you can't change anyone else. You can't. And so if it's their fault, you can't change them, you'll never overcome. But if it's your fault, then you and Jesus can work on it and you can fix it by his grace. And then there's a hope for healing. So when you give the gift of time, of love, of care, of concern, you can do so recognizing that you're just the UPS delivery guy. It's not yours. It doesn't come from you. You're not God. You didn't create it. You didn't make it. It doesn't belong to you. You're only the steward of God's resources. It all belongs to him. It's all his. It's not yours. And anything that he allows to come to you, he does so knowing that it will work out for good, because if it couldn't, he wouldn't allow it to come. So we can trust in him as our good friend, seeking to save us from the craziness that we're in. Margaret, let's see, I got to get that was Martha. Okay, so this is Margaret. All right. So Margaret, she came and saw a friend of mine, colleague of mine, and she was just coughing. A couple of years of a couple of years of coughing. It was just horrible. And over the same period of time, she developed urinary incontinence. And so, if you've got urinary incontinence, well, every time you cough, it's hard to hold things in. And so people don't like you coughing in their face, especially nowadays, huh? So nobody wants you coughing in their face, and nobody is interested in you leaking on their couch. And so there were some very significant social implications to her condition. She had gone and seen specialists, she'd had scans, she'd tried all sorts of procedures and medications and whatever, and it just wasn't working. And so my friend's an ear, nose, throat specialist, and so she went to see him because sometimes you can have chronic cough because of sinus issues and whatever. So he examined her, didn't see anything, sent her in for scans. They came back normal. And so, he understands this cause and effect. And so he started talking with her and saying, okay, well, there's got to be a cause. The cause had to start before you develop these symptoms, and it's got to still be there now because you still have this condition. And obviously the cause is still there because it hasn't been removed, because you still have the problems. And so if you want to, we can meet together and let's discuss this and see if we can find the cause. Well, come to find out, she did. She came for a counseling session, and he shared with her principles of the law of life. And in discussing with her, it came to find out that a few months before she started developing her symptoms, she started getting into an argument with her daughter over the boyfriend, her daughter's boyfriend. Not that she liked the boyfriend, she hated his guts, and she wanted the daughter to get away from him because she didn't like the guy. But the daughter, of course, was in her late teens, and she was not interested in listening to mother and what was going on. And so when the daughter turned 17, I think it was, she left the home and moved in with the boyfriend. And now she's at a distance from Margaret here, and Margaret tries to call her from time to time. The conversation wraps around to the boyfriend, and Margaret's trying to convince her daughter to get away from him, and daughter just hangs up the phone on her. So this has been going on for a few years now. And so my friend recognized, well, that's a problem. Why is it a problem? Because one, love doesn't hate people. Love can hate sin, right? God is love, and he hates sin, but he doesn't hate people. And she hates the boyfriend. That's a problem, right? So it reveals that there's a lack of love in her heart. And also, love provides freedom. Love gives freedom to others, even the freedom to destroy themselves. And her attempt to control her daughter relative to an issue that she thought was important, that is not how love operates. Love does not control others. Love attempts to convict others of the truth, but love never controls others. And so that's not what love does. And so he admonished her to go out in nature, spend time out in nature every day, every morning, go out and talk with God. You don't have the love that you need. And so you need to go out and you need to take that love from God so that you can love your daughter and give her all the freedom that she needs. Let her go. She's not your source. You can come to God and you can take everything that you need. And you do so that you can give love away. And that love provides freedom. So you've got to give her freedom and let her make the decisions that she's going to make and just love her anyway. And go to God and take that love so that you can love the boyfriend too. Well, what did Margaret have to lose? She's tried everything, it wasn't working. And so she actually took it up and started doing it. And she came back about 3 weeks later to a month later for a repeat visit. No more coughing, no more urinary incontinence. It was all gone. Why? Because the cause was identified and removed. And when it was, the effect had to go away. Now, was it all just in her head? No, it wasn't all just in her head. There was real disease going on in her body, real dysfunction. But the foundation of the issue was in her mind. And that was an issue where she was not able to love others. You see, to love some but not all is no love at all. Selfishness can love those who love them, but only love can love those who hate them and don't treat them well. Selfishness cannot handle evil being done to myself. Only love can handle evil being done to myself and responding to that evil with good. And you can only do that when you come and you take that kind of love from God. And so that's what she did. And that began to change everything. You see, sickness of the mind prevails everywhere. 9/10 of the diseases from which men suffer have their foundation here. Now let's talk about love relationships. We need to look at this. We need to look at this, and so we're going to look at two legitimate love relationships. You see, God has created us so that we function in a particular way, and that we always take from one place and we give to another place. Now, if you're a channel, which we are, we're a channel, we're a conduit, we're like the hose and so on. If you're a channel, your giving is never at the place where the taking is. The taking is from the well, the giving is at other places, right? And so you take from one place and you give to another. And the place that you take, the taking is legitimately love, and the giving is legitimately love. And we are created such that we take to give. And that's the way God created us, and that represents divine love in a human or in a creature. Now, Satan is not a creator, so he can't make anything new. So deception is not creating something new, it's simply rearranging something that was good that was there in the first place. If the truth is the horse before the cart, then the error or a lie is the cart before the horse, or the cart under the horse, or the cart above the horse, or the cart beside the horse, or any combination other than the cart behind the horse. And if the truth is the cart behind the horse, then every other variation is a lie. And so Satan just rearranges things. And so he says, love is not taking to give. Love is giving to take, or giving to receive. Now, to do things the way God created you brings life. And this is sin. This is human love. It's the old heart that we talked about. So to do things the way God created it to happen brings life, but to go the opposite direction brings death. Now, the one that you take from, you're dependent upon, right? The one you take from, you're dependent upon, but the one you give to, you're independent of. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, who are you to take from, and how are you to take? And who are you to give to, and how are you to give? Well, those are really good questions. And the answer is we've been told long, long, long ago in God's law. You see, God's law governs the taking love and the giving love. And in his law, the taking love is represented in the first four commandments, and the giving love is represented in the last six. The first table of stone, I don't know if you ever questioned why God wrote the commandments on two tables of stone. There was a reason, right? The first commandments are exclusive commands, while as the last commandments are inclusive. What do I mean? Well, the first commandment says that there is how many gods? Well, it's one. And it says that we are not to worship any other except for the one God. It excludes all others. The second commandment says that we are to not worship any graven image, means that we're supposed to worship how many? One, and it excludes all others. The third commandment says that we are not to take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, right? And what is it to take his name in vain? Well, it's to take the name of Christ, but to live different, to live for the world and to live to other ways. We betray that name when we do so. That also means taking, using his name and cursing, or to use his name flippantly or without due regard to who he is and his character, right? I mean, angels, they cover their faces when they speak his name. It's the reverence that they have for him. Us, we just use it here and there and whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so we are to reverence in our lives how many? One, and it excludes all others. We cannot live for God and mammon at the same time. We cannot live for God and self at the same time. We can only have one on the throne of our lives. So there's only one God and it excludes all others. There's only one that we worship and it excludes the worship of all others. There's only one that we put at the throne of our lives and that excludes all others. And then God said, how many days should we worship him specifically? Well, one, and it excludes all others. It's the day that he set aside. And besides, the fourth commandment is it shows us who we worship. No other commandment in the 10 commandments show us who we worship, because the fourth commandment shows us that he was the creator, right? And it's the only commandment to show us who we are, what our true identity is. We are creatures of the creator, right? And so on. Now, the fifth commandment says that we are to, well, here, let me finish up on this side. So all of these commandments in summary say that there's only one source, and that source is God. And so therefore, only take from here. Only take from here, right? So this is where you take, and this is how you take. You take from the only one source. You don't worship and don't take through idols or representations. You don't take by having something else on the throne of your life. And you take by respecting and remembering his special day of worship and so on, and who he is, right? So there's only one source of God, and we only take from here. The fifth commandment says that we are to do what to our parents? We're to honor them. Is honoring taking, or is it giving? Well, it's giving. So we are to give honor to our parents. Now, does it give any characteristics or qualities of our parents that say that, okay, if they meet these criteria, then you can honor them, and if they don't meet this criteria, you don't have to honor them? Well, no, of course not, right? That's not what it's like, right? So what so who do we give to? We give to our parents irregardless of what they're like. They could be a scoundrel, you're to honor them. They could be honorable, you're to honor them. They could be abusive, you're to honor them. They could be loving and inclusive, you honor them. It doesn't matter what your parents are like, you are to give them honor. It includes every parent, regardless of what they're like, regardless of their characteristics, regardless of their qualities, or what they do with what you give them. It doesn't matter. You just give. You just give. It's inclusive. Right? The sixth commandment says, don't take life from here. The seventh commandment says, don't try to fulfill your need for intimacy here. The eighth commandment says, don't take stuff from here. The ninth commandment says, don't take your don't take reputation and truth from here. The 10th commandment says, don't even think about taking from here. Do not take from here. This is where you take from. And the one that you take from, you're dependent upon. But the one that you give to, you're independent of. Now, how does that dependence and independence work? Well, let's look at it from the context of a stream. Let's say that you're going and you're looking for wilderness property. You know, this whole virus thing is all out there, and you know, you want to get away from all of the regulations of the city. So, woo, look at this. You got freedom. You can go out there. There's nobody that's going to come out and tell you what mask you need to wear and how much distance you need to keep between people and so on and so forth. And upstream, you have a neighbor with their farm over here. In the middle, there's a farm over here. And then downstream, there's another farm over here. And the one in the middle is for sale. And guess what? It's just the right price. And so you buy it. And it's great. You've got this river running through, and it's got pure water, and you can drink it, and it's not polluted, and you've got enough water pressure that you can run the shower in the second floor bathroom, and you've got enough water to water your crops and your garden and other things, and life is just wonderful. And one day, then your neighbor downstream, the neighbor downstream decides that they're going to start an industry, a factory. And so they get this factory, and this factory sucks all this water in from the river, and then it spits out this blackness out here, and that goes downstream, down that way, and so on. And does that directly affect you? Well, the answer is no, it doesn't directly affect you because you still have your pure water, you have your stream, you have your water power, and you even hooked up hydroelectric power so it runs your electricity as well. Everything's functioning well, you're doing fine. That neighbor, if they want to do that industry and do what they do, well, they got the freedom to do so. But what happens when the neighbor upstream decides that they're going to do that same industry and they suck all this water from the river into their factory and they spit out this blackness? Ah, does that directly affect you? The answer is yes, absolutely, it does. It does directly affect you. Now, your water polluted, your water source is polluted. Maybe it's gummy gucky, maybe it knocks out your hydroelectric power generator, and so now you don't have electricity. Maybe the watering of your plants, now they're starting to die because of that, and maybe your people in the home are getting sick and so on. Does that directly affect you? Yes, that directly affects you. Do you need to do something about your neighbor's factory? Yeah, you need to fight for your right to have pure water and not to have this polluted. So you might go and talk to them and try to convince them. If they're not convinced, then you get a lawyer involved. And if the lawyer doesn't work, you try to get the city council or whoever it is involved and so on, so that you can force the neighbor to stop using the factory so that it stops messing up your stuff. So but the one downstream, do you have to do all that stuff too? No, you don't have to do it too. Why? Because they're downstream from you. You've already taken what you need. You give everything that's left over downstream, and they can do what they want to with it down below. So the one you take from, you're dependent upon. The one you give to, you're independent of. Now, there's a problem, and the problem is this. Is that over here on the taking side, we have our parents and we have our family and we have our spouse and we have our friends and we have our coworkers and we have our pets and all of these things and all of these people are all over here on the taking side. Now, the law of God shows us that there should be only one source, and that source should be God. But what happens when you have parents as a source, and you have family as a source, and you have a spouse as a source, and friends and neighbors and pets and coworkers as sources? Well, it becomes chaotic. It's a real problem. Why? How do you know that they're a source? How do you know that they're on the taking side? They frustrate you. You get upset at them. You are hurt by the things they say and they do, and you feel controlled by them and you try to control them. All of these are simply evidences that they are upstream, that they are the ones you are dependent upon, that you're taking from, and therefore you're dependent upon them, right? You're not independent of them. So what they say, what they do matters. You take it personally. It affects you, and so on and so forth, right? But that's not what the law of God intended for you. He intended for all of them to be on the giving side, not the taking side. So when we find this to be the case, then we find that the law of God is broken. It's broken in our lives, and others are upstream. And if others are upstream, God is downstream. So what they say and what they do matters. And I must cater to them or try to control them so that I can get good down this river, so that I can get good coming to me. But God is downstream, so I give him. I give him tithes, and I give him offerings, and I give him service, and I give him church attendance, and I give him soup kitchen work, and I give him mission service, and I give him all of these different things, right? So I'll give him all of this leftover that I have, but what he says and what he does doesn't really matter. If he says don't do that, but I want to do it, well, I do it anyways. If he says don't go there, but I want to go there, I go there anyways. If he says don't eat that, I want to eat it, well, I eat it anyways. So what God says and what he prohibits, what he wants, what he doesn't want, it really doesn't matter to us. We give a whole bunch of stuff to him, but and we think by giving all of those things to him, we're actually serving him and loving him, but that's not the way that God intended it. He did not intend for us to give to God. He intended for us to take from him. He is the source. He's not the one we give to. They are the one we give to, right? What is the love for God like? The love for God is like the love for eating. The love for God is like the love for eating. Why do I love eating? Because it satisfies my need. And that is exactly what we come to God for. The love we have for God is to satisfy our need. And when that need is satisfied, it's nice, right? When you're hungry and then you eat and you're satisfied, it's nice. And that's how it is with God, and that's how he intended it to be, that we come and satisfy ourselves from him, not from them. They are there for me to give to, irregardless of what they're like or what they do with the gift. And so Jesus, knowing this, he came with this heart of human love, of sinful fallen nature, right? He took that upon himself, within himself, and he died on the cross and put that sinful nature to death in himself. He did so that he could eliminate it and he could resurrect with only the divine life, how he created humanity for in the first place, of taking to give, of taking only from God and giving to others. And in putting this to death in himself, he offers to us the very same putting to death by the Holy Spirit and the power of the Holy Spirit that we get by faith. And when we too, by faith in Christ, through the power of the Holy Spirit, put to death this old heart of sin, of giving to receive, right? That brings death along with it, that has all of the people on the taking side and all of God on the giving side, and has everything backwards. When that gets put to death by God's grace, then what God does is he writes his law in our hearts and minds. Jeremiah 31 and verse 33. But this is the covenant, and this is the new covenant. It's recognized by all Bible scholars as the new covenant. This is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Right? So, does this give us any indication that God is going to do away with his law? No, it's not his intention to do away with his law. His intention is to write his law in our hearts and in our minds. And when he does so, then he restores the original intention of the law, which is to have God only on the taking side, and our parents and our family and our spouses and our friends and our coworkers and our pets and everybody else is moved over to the other side. They are the ones that we give to, not the ones we take from. We are dependent only upon God and what he says and what he wants. That we are concerned about and we follow, because our goodness, our needs, our everything comes from him. And we take that, and then we give everything left over to others so that they might have the good that we took from God. And when that is active in our lives, then the law of God is restored. It's restored in our hearts and minds as God created us for in the beginning. And that's what God is seeking to do, is to redeem us back to our original creation. And he's seeking to do that before he returns again. And that reality will be seen in the lives of the 144,000. If you haven't heard of the 144,000, just look in Revelation. You can look in Revelation 14, talks about it, and a few other places in that group. But the 144,000, the law of God will be written in their hearts and their minds. They will have God as their source. They will put others after them. They will not be dependent upon others. They will not take things personally that others say and that they do. They will respond in every circumstance and every torture and every whatever. They will respond with love and care and concern for others, because that's all that's left in their hearts, because God has transformed them by his grace. And there's not much time left. This world is coming to an end. And if we don't see it, if we don't know it, if it's not a part of our lives, there's not much time to get there. But by God's grace, in the short time that's left, he can do an accelerated program so that we can be prepared and we can give the message of freedom and love and transformation of the gospel and the beauty of the law of God. Why would we ever get rid of the law of God? Why would we want to get rid of the law of God? It shows us what love is and how it works and how it functions. It's not God that ever intended to get rid of his law. It was written on stone to show that it was permanent. It's the devil that wants to get rid of the law, because the law reveals his deception and it shows the truth. And it opens people's eyes to his deception so he can't deceive them. That's why he wants people to believe that the law will be put away, destroyed, nailed to the cross. Now, when you take from God as your source, that fills your spirit, because it's your spirit that needs love. It needs acceptance and belonging and harmony and security and righteousness and truth and and all these things, right? And when you take those things from God, it fills the spirit with exactly what the spirit needs. But when you give those things away, that fills the body, because giving must become physical. You give with a smile. You give with words. You give with actions. You give with a hug. All of that is physical. So the taking fills the spirit, but the giving fills the body. And the healing comes with the giving, because that then brings to the body exactly what the body was created for. It was created for giving the love of God because we take the love from him. And when that is what goes into the body, that's exactly what the body needs, and it brings about healing. So we remember that our problem is the sources from which we take, right? That's the big issue, the source. The tree, the problem in the tree is not because of the tree, it's because of the source that it's taking from. And we have our roots planted in people. We have our roots planted in pets. We have our roots planted in Satan and so on. But we need to have those those roots planted in God and God alone. And we see that there is a law that governs the function of love, and it's the 10 Commandments. It's the law of God. And when that law is broken, there are symptoms, disease, and death, right, that result from that. And we see that sin is breaking the law, and it's God's law, which is founded on love. And so disease is the result of a love problem. Now we can see it for what it really is. And when the Bible talks about health and healing, it doesn't talk about eating your vegetables. It doesn't talk about going out and exercising. It doesn't talk about how many donuts you can have and you can't have, and so on and so forth. What does it talk about? It talks about obeying God. Exodus 15:26, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. Proverbs 3:7 and 8, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. What is it? Fearing the Lord and departing from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. Proverbs 4:20-23, my son, give attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your eyes. Keep them in the midst of your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to all their flesh. What is health to all their flesh? His words. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Deuteronomy 7:12-15, then it shall come to pass, because you listen to these judgments and keep and do them, that the Lord your God will love you and bless you and multiply you, and he will bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land. You shall be blessed above all peoples. There shall not be a male or female barren among you, and the Lord will take away from you all sickness and will afflict you with none of the terrible diseases of Egypt which you have known. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. What's the condition? You listen to the judgments and you keep and do them. That's the condition. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. Yeah. If we turn, he will heal. Matthew 13:15. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. Oh. So that we would see, hear, understand, and turn. Then he would heal us. What does that mean when we're otherwise? It means that we're blind, we're deaf, we lack understanding, and we don't see that we need to turn from anything because we think that we're in the right pathway. Oh, what terrible deception. It is through faith in Jesus Christ that the truth is accepted in the heart and the human agent is purified and cleansed. Jesus was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Is it possible to be healed while knowingly committing sin? No. It's genuine faith. It says, I know that I have committed sin, but that Jesus has pardoned my sin, and hereafter I will resist temptation in and through his might. Yeah. No. So what do we do? What do we do now? We've learned a lot of stuff. We have gone into some deep topics and so on. So what do we do? What's our responsibility? How do we move from here? Well, the first thing that we need to do, of course, is to take. We need to come and take from God's love. But how do you take is the question. Well, taking is by faith. When you by faith believe what God says, when you believe his words, that is taking from God's love. It's as simple as that, right? And that can be done in prayer, right? But prayer can be done really bad. Like you can pray and you can dig a hole while you're praying. I used to do that. I've been there, done that. Right? What kind of praying is that? That's like, oh God, I'm such a miserable sinner and I've done this again and I can't believe that I've done that and I'm just so horrible and I'm never any good and I don't know why you put up with me and oh God, I'm such a miserable person and I don't know if I'm ever gonna get it and I'm just such a dense this and that and so on and so forth and yada 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 and boo boo hoo hoo ha 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 and whatever and oh God, please help me, but I don't know why you would help me because I'm so horrible and blah blah blah. And so the whole time in prayer, you're just not believing anything of God's word and you're not taking any of it as true. And all you're doing is you're just building up and strengthening doubt and disbelief and so on while you pray. That's not the kind of prayer that does you any good. What kind of prayer does you good? It's prayer that takes the word of God and gives it right back to him in faith. God, you said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Lord, you promised I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn you. Lord, according to your promise, I have never been forsaken. And according to your promise, you will always love me. And so, Lord, I thank you that I am loved. Even though there's badness going around me and there are people that are rejecting and doing other types of things like that, yet Lord, I know you don't reject me because you have given me the promise that you don't. And yes, Lord, I slipped up and I made that mistake today, but you said if I confess my sin, you are faithful and just to forgive me of my sin and cleanse me from all unrighteousness. And so, Lord, I confess that sin before you and I ask for your forgiveness. And Lord, I thank you for forgiving me. And Lord, I have this tendency to fear all the stuff that's going on and the things that I hear in the news and all the stuff that's around and it seems like the world is falling apart and you know America is just coming to its knees and so on and what's going to come. But Lord, you said in Isaiah 41:10, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And so, Lord, I thank you that you are my strength, that you are with me, that you promise to not leave me, that you are my Lord and you will uphold me with your righteous right hand. And I have nothing to fear. And so, Lord, I choose to not be afraid in this situation, but to trust in you and that you will take me through. Whatever it may be and whatever it may look like, Lord, I can trust in you and I thank you for that. So, prayer that takes from God is prayer that incorporates the truth of God's word and stands upon that truth and believes it, even though I can't see it with my eyes, even though my senses say that it's not the case, but I believe the word of God because he has said it and he cannot lie. Right? Now, reading God's word. Oh, that's beautiful. Go through and read his word. It's his love letter, right? Read it like a love letter. How would you read a love letter? You want to know who it is that's writing to you. You want to know what their thoughts are towards you. And what does he say? Jeremiah 29 and verse 11, for I know the thoughts that I have towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope, right? An expected end. He's got good thoughts for us. And so go through and read of those good thoughts that he has for us. Recognize that everything in his word is a revelation of unselfish love. Don't read it from the standpoint of your human emotions, your human thoughts, and thinking that God thinks like you do. No, no, no. Look at it from the standpoint of unselfish love, that everything that God says and everything that God does is for the good of the other. It's always for the good of the other. And see that throughout all scripture and see how beautiful and wonderful his love is. Read that word, read the promises, accept them, believe them, and it becomes yours. And that is taking the love of God. Contemplate the life of Christ. Think in your mind through the parables. Imagine you being there as Jesus is on the Sermon on the Mount and delivering those messages. What would you be thinking? What was he addressing? What were the circumstances like? See the other people around you and how they're responding, and look in the face of Jesus and imagine the how he would look at you. Would it be a frown? Would it be an ugly thing? Would it be kind of a look of, hey, you get out of here? Or would it be of accepting love and a wonderful embracing of you, even from a distance by his look, and so on? Contemplate the life of Christ, especially that Last Supper, the Garden of Gethsemane, his trial, his crucifixion, and to his death, because that reveals in the greatest degree the depth of the love of God. And as you contemplate those scenes and the motivations that was going through his heart through that time and so on, it's beautiful. And if you want a commentary that helps you to enter into the scenes of the life of Christ in just a wonderful way so that you can see it more clearly, I would recommend the book to you, The Desire of Ages. That's called The Desire of Ages. Wonderful commentary on the life of Christ. And it's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's a great companion to the Gospels in the Bible. So you need acceptance, come from God. Come to God and take all the acceptance you need. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name. But in every nation, whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. You need that acceptance. Come and take the acceptance that you need. But you want acceptance to remain yours, give it away. Because the purpose of taking it is to give it away. So accept others. You need belonging? Come to him. Take all the belonging you need. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called children of God. Right? So he calls us his children. We belong to him. Believe it, and when you believe it, it's yours. And then give it away. Be a place of belonging for others. You need security? Well, it says the angel of the Lord encamps around all those who fear him and delivers them. And my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. Believe the promise and it's yours. Take it. And then be security for others. Give it away. You need understanding? Take it. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Yeah, he understands. He's been there. He's been in human flesh. He knows exactly what you struggle with. Come to him. He understands. Take all the understanding you need, and then understand others. Right? Give them understanding too. You need truth. Jesus said to those Jews who believed in him, if you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Yeah, he is the truth. Come, take of the truth, and then share the truth with others. You need forgiveness. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Take that forgiveness, accept it as your very own, go free, and then go set others free. You don't owe me anything. I don't hold anything against you. Your sin was against God, and so you must go to him for forgiveness. But if you want, I'll help you. We can go together, so you don't have to go alone. You need joy? Your words were found, and I ate them, and your word was to me the joy and rejoicing of my heart, for I am called by your name, O Lord God of hosts. Oh, what wonderful joy God has. Take it, take it, take it, take it. And then be joy with others. Give joy away. You need peace? Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Interestingly, not as the world gives do I give to you. How does the world give peace? The world gives peace by taking away trouble. God does not give peace that way. He gives peace in the midst of trouble, right? Just like him asleep in the boat in the midst of the storm, and the disciples thought they were going to die. He was sleeping. And when they woke him up, did he get scared all of a sudden because he was in the storm? No. He simply looked around and said, "Peace, be still." And no more storm. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Now he says, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. You're not going to get away from tribulation. It's going to be there. That's a promise. In the world you will have tribulation. That's a promise. Just like in me you will have peace is a promise. God is not going to give you peace by taking away trouble and trial and tribulation and all that kind of stuff. He will give you peace in the middle of it, because your peace is not out there, your peace is in here. But be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. You need compassion, but you go, Lord of God, our God, full of compassion, gracious, long suffering, abundant in mercy and truth. When he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them because they were weary and scattered like sheep having no shepherd. Yeah, come take all the compassion you need and then give compassion away. Be compassionate for others. You need hope, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. Take it, believe it, it's true, it's yours. And then inspire others with hope as well. When the promises of God are freely and fully accepted, heaven's brightness is brought into the life. I know no better way to take of the love of God by believing the promises of God that they're true and relying upon them in my real life, putting them to the test. Second point, we need to accept his new heart, his new love. Now, I don't know if you've ever watched heart transplants. I have been on cardiothoracic surgery rotations, medical school, and it's quite interesting to see the chest cracked open and the heart beating and then the heart stopping and and doing the surgery and all of that stuff. It's quite fascinating to be there and actually watch it in person. Well, in a heart transplant, there are a number of conditions that must be met or that must be true in order for a heart transplant to happen. One of those is that you must have an incurable heart condition. You must have a heart that cannot be maintained and that cannot be fixed. You can't just be on medication for the rest of your life. You can't just have this thing or that thing for the rest of your life. It's an incurable heart condition and it's going to kill you. If that's not the case, you are not a candidate for heart transplant. So in this case, as in the physical, so in the spiritual. So in the spiritual sense, that old heart, that sinful nature that we have, it's rotten, it's incurable. We can't fix it. There's no way of maintaining it. It will kill us. It will kill us. And that is why we are eligible for a heart transplant, because it's not fixable and it's terminal, it's killer. And there's nothing we can do to fix it. Nothing we can do to fix it. Another thing that must be true for a heart transplant is that you must trust the surgeon and give them consent. Now, let's imagine that you go in and you have this terminal condition. You meet the doctor. The doctor is like really young, and and says, "Okay, well, we're going to do the surgery, and or this is what we're going to do," and so on and so forth. And so then you're a little bit suspicious because he's really young, and you say, "Okay, well, how many times have you done this surgery before?" And he kind of hems and haws and looks around and and so on. And he says, "Well, I've had a lot of practice on the virtual, the 3D, 3D virtual reality game for heart transplant." And so then you ask again, so how many times have you actually done the procedure in reality on a living individual? He says, "Well, you'll be the first one." Um, well, so how likely are you going to trust that surgeon to do your surgery? No, probably not. You're probably going to be looking for a second opinion. You want a surgeon that has done a ton of the procedures, They've had all sorts of procedures that they've done, and they have a really high success rate, and they have high ratings from their patients. And they're willing to listen to you, talk to you. They're not one of those "Meh, meh, meh," cut you off and go move on, right? They listen, they care, and they're concerned about you, right? So that's the one you're going to trust and that you'll give your consent to in for the procedure. If you don't give consent, surgeon's not taking you to surgery against your will. No, no, it's only when you give your will. And so the same thing with the new heart. You must learn to trust the surgeon. Now, I will tell you this, he has done millions and millions of heart transplant surgeries and he's never lost a case. Never. So yes, you can trust him, but you'll never go through the procedure until you give him your consent. Now, in accepting the new heart and new love, we also must be willing to go through the pain. It is not painless to go through heart transplant. Now, you might be, quotes, asleep or anesthetized while you are going through the procedure. And so you might not be consciously aware of the pain, but that does not mean that there's not pain while you're going through the procedure. In fact, they can do EEGs and look at the electrical activity coming to the brain, and the electrical activity coming to the brain is the very same as if you were alive, if you were awake and going through the procedure. It's just that you're not conscious while it's happening. But what happens after you wake up? Yeah, well, when you wake up, the consciousness returns and you feel it. You feel it, right? So you must be willing to go through the pain, and it's not painless. It is not painless. There must be a donor with a good heart. If the donor has the same incurable heart condition that you do, no use in going through with the procedure. The donor must have a good heart that will give you life. And so, of course, God looked all over for a donor, and he couldn't find anyone else but himself. And so he volunteered and he said, okay, it will be me. I won't just give you any heart. I'm going to give you my heart. Right? And of course, we know that the donor must die. Right? The donor of the heart must die because you can't live without a heart. And so God must die, not God, Jesus. Right? He was fully God and he was fully man, but it was not God that died. It was the man, Jesus, that died. And he must die in order that he can give you his nature, his unfallen nature, his new heart. Right? And what many people don't realize is that the recipient must die as well and then be revived. You see, there is never two hearts in one chest. You either have to cut out the one before you put in the other. You got to cut out the one before you put in the other. And then you've been on bypass artificially. Your life has been artificially supported. But now when you're taken off bypass, the heart isn't beating, the new heart isn't beating. And so the surgeon has to reach in there with those little paddles and shock it. And it's still not beating. And he shocks it. It's still not beating. He reaches his hand in the chest and he starts massaging the heart and getting it to have forward blood flow, because you don't want the brain or other places to die for lack of materials, raw materials. And so he does that for a while, and then he gets those paddles, sticks them in there, and shock. Nothing. And you can feel the tension in the room. I remember this. You can feel the tension in the room, and everybody's just anxiously waiting to see something happen, because if that heart never starts beating, you never wake up. Failed procedure, you're dead. And he shocks the heart again, and all of a sudden you see a quiver and another kind of quiver and so on. And then all of a sudden you see this regular beating, and everybody sighs, sighs a sigh of relief. And then the surgeon starts putting Humpty Dumpty back together again and so on, right? So the recipient must die and be revived as well. And finally, you must follow the surgeon's instructions for the rest of your life because you're not living with your heart anymore, you're living with his. So if you want a new heart, you must recognize that you have nothing good. Your heart is incurable, it's in a terminal condition, it will kill you. You must learn to trust the surgeon and give him consent to take you through pain in order to set you free, in order to give you life. The donor has a good heart and he's going to give it to you, and he must die and he makes the choice to do so. But you must also die to your wants, to your wishes, to your plans, to, to your will for your life, that you might surrender to his will for your life. And then be given new life by the power of the Holy Spirit. And when you do so, you love the one who saved you and set you free. And it's your joy to follow his instructions for the rest of your life because you now have his heart. All true obedience comes from the heart. It was heart work with Christ, and if we consent, he will so identify himself with our thoughts and aims, so blend our hearts and minds into conformity to his will, that when obeying him, we shall be but carrying out our own impulses. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. The will, refined and sanctified, will find its highest delight in doing his service. When we know God as it is our privilege to know him, our life will be a life of continual obedience. Through an appreciation of the character of Christ, through communion with God, sin will become hateful to us. Ah, beautiful. Beautiful. That comes from that commentary that I told you about, The Desire of Ages. Really good book. The last point that we'll make tonight, what do? I need to accept the divine exchange at the cross. That's right. Accept that divine exchange at the cross that we talked about yesterday. And enter into that so that I may go free. I'm no longer the victim. I'm no longer the perpetrator. It's no longer me who did it. Also on the cross, Jesus puts to death the sinful nature that deceives me into sin. And when I enter into the cross, Jesus gives me his sinless nature so that I can now come out of the deception and I can begin to trust in him and live the life of Christ as he lives in me to will and to do of his good pleasure. And my life entirely changes. Again, if you want more resources, there's the book, The Law of Life, at Amazon or at YouTube Pines gift shop or at betterlivingcreations.com. There's YouTube series. I've already showed that to you on the other nights, where you can find those, where you can get that. And if you actually want DVDs, then I think you'll need to call YouTube Pines and let them know, and then they can ship it out to you. Most people are just doing things on YouTube nowadays, and so you can get it there. But if you do want the DVDs, then you can you can get them through the front desk and calling them and letting them know that you want it. Somebody just asked me about it this week and said that they're working with a prison, and the prisoners, nobody can get in there and do services because of COVID and whatever, but the prison warden will play DVDs over the internal TV station that's there. And so they were wondering if they could get some DVDs of this series so that they could play it in the prison for the inmates that are there. So sure, call the main number and they'll get that out to them. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can get to some Q&A time here.